I really do hope whoever watches Shincho Yusha, Cautious Hero, had headphones on if they have a lot of people in their house, because this definitely had a very awkward beginning when it came to sounds, but also just what was on screen. I truly hope there was a locked door, there was headphones, etc. if you have family or friends around you, because it's honestly something that would be very hard to explain if someone just walked in on your room and saw what happened within this episode. But that out of the way, though, this episode of Cautious Hero reveals that the archery lady, she is a nymphomaniac. Now, this honestly was nothing that was too far-fetched. It's not really surprising in the grand scheme of things, because, when you really think about what the previous episode did, it basically already implied that she had interest in, our hero, Seiya, and then the whole final sequence of the episode with her kind of licking the apple and eating it, it kind of also went along with that theme that she was looking at Seiya lustfully. So when you really see this episode, it isn't that much of a surprise to see that she is basically a nymphomaniac. Now, how Seiya handled it is something, honestly, I did not expect, and I think many didn't really expect to see it turn out like it did. So to get right into it, basically, the whole first, quarter of the episode to almost half of the episode is spent on the archery lady and kind of how her personality is in comparison to the other gods/goddesses that Seiya has encountered. Now, once again, this is kind of like a gimmick of Cautious Hero since the very beginning of the story, is that every god or goddess that Seiya encounters and he trains under, usually he messes with them in a mental sense, like he breaks them down, etc., and we're revealed to a hidden personality that we didn't expect from them. For instance, the first one, the Divine Blade, Seiya broke his mind to where he didn't even want to train anymore, and then the second one with the goddess, she was like this creepy horror story girl, and then all of a sudden she turned into this lovey-dovey, like, romance girl you would see like in a romance manga and anime, which is just very weird, but then she had a yandere side to her, and so obviously this character was going to have something that was going to be a little bit like, whoa, and like I said, nymphomaniac. And the way Seiya kind of handled it was something that was it demonstrated his abilities, and it also once again, kind of gives you a little bit more comedy that this series has been going on with since the very beginning. And I think that is just something I think many did not expect coming into Cautious Hero. It's definitely something I didn't expect. I know I've mentioned it quite a bit, but the comedy of this series definitely stands out to me. I know comedy is subjective, and not everybody's going to like the same form of comedy, etc., and I know some don't really like Konosuba because of its type of comedy. It's understandable, and Cautious Hero, there's going to be some that don't like its comedy because of it. That's how it goes. But personally, I'm a big fan of the comedy, and it's just really shocking to see just how this series has so many comedy elements, along with just being a really good story throughout, all these episodes. So, I just appreciate this series. I really do appreciate Cautious Hero. It's definitely something that has, earned a lot of respect from me in terms of just enjoyability, and I can't wait to see where the story's going to go. But, dropping that for now, though, Seiya is able to use the arrows, the multi-shot arrow, and he is able to, shoot 5 to 7 shots within this episode, which shows that he has definitely mastered the skill of the archery goddess. So it's pretty crazy. He's definitely learned very quickly, he's able to shoot very quickly, and he's able to just, get the job done from long range now instead of having to be close range fighter with a sword. So Seiya has definitely increased his arsenal by a large margin. Now, getting into the segment in the middle of the episode, finding out a little bit more about the kids, basically Mash and Erudu, I think that's how you say her name, she actually has learned the ability called Delay in Haste. Now, the ability that the little girl learned is something that actually I think is going to be very useful going forward within the story, and I want you guys to hear me out. This is just theory crafting, because knowing how Seiya is and how he loves to do things unconventionally, or he really overthinks things, etc., I could definitely see, him using Erudu's ability, Delay/Haste, to his advantage, not in terms of cleaning up, let's say, dead bodies like the flies and stuff, but actually using it to enhance Seiya's abilities. I wonder if she could theoretically use it to where she can slow down or speed up certain body parts or objects in the environment. Example, when Seiya was trying to fight the fly dude, Beelzebub, within this episode, I was under the impression that Seiya was going to be using some form of delay magic that we saw Eridu use, and he was going to have all his arrows delayed, and then he was going to have them all just right side by side, since they're going very slow and all that, and then he was going to have, haste applied to all of them, and they were all going to be launched straight up, and it was just going to be a major volley of arrows going straight up into the sky, so no matter how fast you are as a fly, you won't be able to dodge it. I was under the impression and assuming something like that might have happened. It didn't happen, which there's still a likely possibility maybe something like that can happen if, Seiya is able to learn haste/delay, but I do think, though, that the ability that Eridu has is very, very good. Because being able to slow people down for, I'm assuming, an unknown period of time, like until she decides to deactivate it, is something that is incredibly strong. I mean, imagine this. No matter how powerful you are, if you are slowed down with a delay, you're not going to be able to defend yourself. Like, imagine if something like that was used on Seiya, he wouldn't be able to move that fast unless he has a counterplay, which, knowing Seiya, he probably does. But that's the point, though, is the ability is incredibly strong, and the haste ability as well is incredibly strong. I mean, you even see Mash and how he's able to run around quickly to gather all the dead bodies of the flies and pile them up in a mountain pile before Seiya could actually use Hellfire to break it all down. It's definitely a useful utility spell, and I am looking forward to seeing how that will be utilized going forward within the story. And speaking of spells and stuff the kids learn, Mash also learned the ability to kind of use his dragon transformation power on different body parts on his body. For instance, he turns one of his arms into a dragon instead of doing a full-on dragon transformation. It's incredibly useful because it means that he doesn't need to go through the process of potentially stretching his armor, breaking his armor, etc. He doesn't need to go full-on. He can just use certain body parts to enhance real quickly and then de-transform in an instant. It's something that can, take a lot of time and effort. It's definitely going to take a lot of time to really get down how to use his body in a way like that, but it's definitely powerful, and I can definitely see that being useful going forward as well, for him to being able to defend himself. Now, getting into the actual fight, so we have the fight continue with the Fly, one of the 4 Heavenly Kings that Seiya has to go up against. He's ready perfectly like he always says, and this time, as always, he was training to be able to use his bow and arrow, which is what he uses against, the Fly. And basically, we kind of find out that the Fly, regardless of how close Seiya is or how far Seiya is, his arrows are still not fast enough to really be able to hit the Fly guy because he's just that freaking quick. But the point, though, is that Seiya had a countermeasure, which is obvious. He always kind of has it, because when he says he's ready perfectly, he is ready. He has a counter plan. He knows what's potentially going to happen. He's ready for any, way the, the fight can go. And so he had it to where his arrows he shot was able to transform into doves and completely boomerang back and attack the Fly. Now, personally, this is ingenious. This is a really great utility spell for Seiya to use. We've already seen that he's able to do stuff like this already in the previous episodes, but just seeing how he used it for the arrows is definitely something very important, because you have it to where if he's just shooting regular arrows, most of the time people are not going to expect those arrows to turn into something at the end of it and completely come back at supersonic speed or whatever and just destroy you. So it makes sense why the man wasn't able to really figure it out. Even if the Fly guy was very cautious, he was able to kind of figure out where Seiya was, how he's flying up in the clouds, how there was a decoy and all that, which at this point, Beelzebub was definitely someone that is the most, I guess, cautious out of the 4 Heavenly Kings we've seen, but that's left to be seen from the new one that was introduced at the end of the episode, which I'll get into in a second. But Beelzebub, he was very cautious, and Seiya did come out on top, but if Seiya wasn't as, prepared as he was, he might not have won, which once again goes to show if Seiya doesn't take his time and really try to prepare, he would have died a very long time ago, and this is something that's constantly been shown now every single episode, and I think many at the start of the series didn't think that Seiya really needed to be this cautious, but once again, it's thanks to his cautious nature that has really saved them time and time again. And I wonder if he's even ready for this other 4 Heavenly King that was introduced at the end of the episode, because he hasn't really gotten to train to really analyze his abilities, etc. So I am curious on how that's going to go down. Will he run away at the beginning of the next episode? It is likely, depending if the dude has a hostage or not, which I'll talk about in a second. So, yeah, Seiya, he took down Beelzebub, and it was relatively quick and simple. You know, after he took him down, basically they needed to move on to their next objective, which was basically going to a town and figuring out where this legendary armor is to be able to take down the Demon King. Now, this is something that is, once again, present in this story that's already popped up once. For instance, when it came to the legendary weapon that was going to be able to take down the Demon King, the one weapon that was destined to take him down. This is something you commonly see in these type of stories or fantasy RPGs, etc. I know I personally seen it for a handful of games I've played over the years, so seeing something like this introduced with a legendary armor or a legendary sword or weapon, etc., it's not too far-fetched. However, these weapons are usually utilized in the case because if the hero doesn't get strong enough, these weapons can be used as a crutch, or this armor can be used as a crutch to be able to take down the final boss. So, honestly, Seiya really relying on them isn't something I think that would really fit his, you know, fighting style, but it does make you worry because this is an S rank, you know, world. This isn't relatively easy, but it also goes to show how cautious that the Heavenly Kings are, but also the Demon King is, to be able to get rid of that armor as well. Because now Seiya doesn't even have the sword or even the armor to face the Demon King. So he now has to use whatever means that's possible to him without things that are actually destined to kill his final opponent. So the armor is destroyed at the end of the episode, and so Seiya has lost his only means of the final tier armor that he could use, which I do think that he most likely will be able to create something with it, because we've already seen that he's able to craft gear and all that. And if he uses maybe a piece of that legendary gear that's dented and all that with something of Rista, you know, he might be able to create a duplicate or something even stronger than that. I could definitely see that happening, but we'll see. But the dude at the end, though, he is definitely someone that's incredibly cautious, because according to him, he's been spying on Seiya since the very beginning with a crystal ball, watching him very closely, seeing what he's doing, etc., which means that he's been properly analyzing Seiya's abilities. So he knows what Seiya is capable of. He knows that Seiya is able to use like a boomerang ability, turn his arrows into like birds and stuff. He knows that Seiya is most likely able to craft gear. He knows how Seiya is very cautious with potions, holy water, etc. He most likely has been really analyzing this man for a very long time, because he said he's been watching him with a crystal ball. So if he really has been doing that, then this is going to be a very hard fight for Seiya, because he really doesn't have anything that he can use against this man unless he has been hiding something, which is possible, but the question is he ready to face this man? Because this man is able to create and summon beasts that is able to actually destroy legendary armor. So if that really is the case, that's scary. So yeah, I think that's pretty much about it, though, when it comes to this week's episode of Cautious Hero. It's a good episode, obviously, and I think many can agree that it's fantastic where the story is going. I do wonder, though, if Seiya's finally going to crack or not, like if he's going to start to show a different side to him like we already saw in the previous episodes, or is he going to be able to remain calm and be ready perfectly to take down this opponent, which, by the way, there is one last thing I do want to mention before I, wrap up this video, and that is, once again, the goddess that seems to know a lot more about Seiya than meets the eye. She acts very weird within this episode towards the beginning. She basically starts talking about how it's very obvious Seiya would be fine, etc., and then you have Rista basically say, oh, you seem to know so much about Seiya, or, you seem to really know him, even though I've spent more time with him. It kind of basically implied that goddess has been around Seiya so much, in fact, that it's been way more time she spent with him than Rista has since the first episode. So there's more theories going on here that Seiya might have known her in some way, because we do know that gods and goddesses can be reincarnated. I mean, we've already seen this displayed with a divine blade, so it is possible that maybe the goddess girl, she at one point in time was maybe in Seiya's world or something as a regular human, then got reincarnated into where she's at. If that is the case, it would explain why she would know him, but there's a lot of questions I have, but there is definitely more hints going on as the story progresses. But I want to leave it at that. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like, and if you want to get notified whenever I upload a video, please click the bell icon down below, and with that, Chibi out.